All right, hey everybody, welcome. I'm just going to do a quick take and a recap on the city council meeting that we just had. So I just brought that up. Thank you for those of us that had joined. But if you weren't able to join, and/or you just want a quick summary because we all have a lot going on, right? We're all always busy and stuff. I'll give you a quick recap. So let me bring it up here. All right, so there was supposed to be the finance committee meeting was canceled tonight. Okay. They at first weren't letting us in, so it was like almost 7 o'clock when the meeting was supposed to start that they finally unlocked the door. And then you get in there and you see that there are certain people already in there. Like one time Jedediah was already in there. Like, how did he get in if the public doors were locked? Like Mayor Clark's mother is already seated in there. Like, again, how did she get in when the public doors were locked? So, it's just more examples of how they don't do transparency. That's a good question. I don't think so. Yeah. But that's a good point. I never like the 8. So then we go through. We have to get our typical security thing done here. Hey, Javar. So they treat us like criminals. We have to go through the metal detector. Not that I'm saying that that's not horrible, per se, but it's just. Again, it's like, so the mayor's mom didn't have to go through the metal detector, or those other people, how did they get in before the public doors were open? It's just stupid stuff like that. Then you have to sign in for public comment. So I signed up for public comment. Then I went to the back and got set up. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why the internet. It didn't look that way on my other phone. It didn't look so blurry. Oh man, I wish someone would have told me. So things got started a little late. Hold on. Yeah, they're running up tonight at 7:01. They haven't started yet. Not a huge turnout so far. So got off to a slow start. Oh, there's the famous Magana back there. Or infamous, I should say, rather. Alderwoman Delaney Smith, she's right here. She was there. Alderman Randall Al was there. This gentleman, his name is Lonnie. I'm forgetting his last name, Harrison. He's over the building department. And again, when we came in, Mayor Clark's mother was seated up here. So I don't know how she got special, preference to come in early before the rest of the public. But that's the sort of stuff that we see from the Clark administration all the time. And it just gets really tiring, especially when they're letting the rest of us in at the last minute. We're all rushed, and then they only give you a few minutes to sign up for public comment. So it's just crazy. Hey, Black Pearl. Hey. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so people are still coming in. All right, where's the mayor? Come on, Mr. Mayor. Oh, here he is. Now notice, he always comes with his security guy. Look, watch over here. See? Now, to my knowledge, we pay for him. There's Miss Beth stopped in tonight. Thank you for your support, Beth. That's the police chief reading the statement, basically threatening people like, you can't say anything out of order, or you can't argue with the police, or you'll, be charged with the crime. They love to threaten the public. Oh, prayer. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, and then Colby said, we didn't really get the minutes, so then they weren't able to vote on the minutes. So they skipped that. They didn't have any executive session. And then I wanted to show you, as always, look at all the police that are there. So many police. It's crazy. Look at. There's all the city workers. There's the chief of police in the white shirt. But look, see? There's one guy who's fully armed. There's a lady officer. There's one of the few of the camera people. Then there's Meganya, the one who's manhandled Colby and others. There's another guy, I forget his name, James, I think. And then there's at least 3 fully armed officers outside, sitting outside there. Isn't that crazy? And then there's Clark's personal security. That's a lot of money we're paying for security and police, for a peaceful public meeting. Crazy. They sound quieter tonight to me for some reason. Still kind of hard to hear him. Basically, they only voted on 2 new items of business. We didn't see any bills lists. Alderman Rogers was not there, and Alderwoman Derwinski, neither of them were there. Even though the city's in a full-blown crisis. Excuse me. And then the mayor canceled the last meeting because supposedly the HVAC was broken, which has been broken many, many times. And so, when you go in there in the summer and you're trying to pay bills or whatever, it's like, you never know. Sometimes it's okay, and then other days you're roasting, and you wonder, how do the city workers survive in there all day like that? I don't know how they survive. So, but yeah, you see, Clark has his chauffeur, he has his luxury SUV, he has his personal security. So it's infuriatingly hypocritical when he says there's, they don't have the money for things. They do. It just depends on what he wants to spend it on. So they voted on 2 items. One involved replacing lead water supply lines, and then the other was the 157th Street reconstruction project. Both things which, sound okay, but we were never given any information on any of them before the vote, so we don't really know any details. So, that's what it says in the agenda, but they could be voting on anything. They could be voting on, they could have something in there in the documents at the end, giving money to, a politician or their friend or something, or giving them property. Like, we don't know, because they never show us any where the city books, and they never show us the resolutions, the ordinances ahead of time or after they're voted on. All right, then public comment. Okay, so I think I was first. That's what I just said, yeah. Yeah, because it drives me nuts when he says that. We don't have the money. We can't afford it. We're in debt because of the last administration. It's everybody else's fault, but not mine. It's like this is his 6th year in office. Since 2023, he's had 4 aldermen that do whatever he says. They're like his slaves, his yes men. They're disgusting. They have no backbone whatsoever. They have no morals, no conscience. And he's still making excuses and won't show us where the money's going. So obviously, we can't help but think that probably the money and resources are going places where they shouldn't, right? Because otherwise, why would he be so secretive about it? And then this is the section where I'm talking about ICE and the lack of political response to. We've had several ICE sightings in Harvey the past few weeks, and people are scared. One was on the Harvey-Dixmoor border at Rosa Parks. I think they said it was ICE or some sort of police that people couldn't identify in the parking lot of the school. And then also there was some sort of ICE sighting outside of Taft Elementary. So people are scared, right? Because we can see it in the news, confirmed reports where agents are sitting outside of schools and workplaces, and they're waiting to really kidnap people. It doesn't have anything to do with, following due process and helping people to properly get their citizenship. It's really just political intimidation and harassment. And, people are being sent off to concentration camps and their rights are being violated. They basically have no rights. So it's very scary. And the whole city administration has been totally silent on this. Oh, thank you. Diego clapped. Okay, because I was walking to my seat and so I heard someone clap. I didn't know who did. Diego's the gentleman here. So I don't know if you heard all that, but basically, I talked about how I wanted to see a response about ICE, and then talking about all the fires and how we need to, the city should be working together with city staff and nonprofits and volunteers to board up, place roof tarps on these empty properties, et cetera, et cetera. Not only does the mayor not do that, but he harasses volunteers and people, and he's been doing that for years, people that were raising their own money and their own funds to do this because the city refused. So it's like, not only does he forbid our city workers to address these vacant properties, but then he was persecuting and ticketing, sending the police after people who were volunteering. Like, it's craziness. he's he's so rude. Clark is so rude. So basically, he was saying, why is Jed talking about? I think he defamed Melville King, Mr. King, but there was, Jed had made some very rude comments, saying that someone who had complained about some of the prostitutes on Halstead and that the city wasn't addressing and helping them, that the only reason that person was speaking up was because he was like a jilted lover or a jilted client of one of the prostitutes, which, again, it's defamation, it's rude, it's distracting, it's just all those horrible things that we've seen come from Jed. So that was his main issue, and he did a great job of bringing that up. Okay, and then next. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I saw the comments about the volume. Yeah, I think it sounds quiet tonight too, doesn't it? What is the? As far as I know, I think it's turned up all the way. Let me check though. Let me double check. Yeah. Volume's turned up to, yeah, I don't know why it came across as so quiet tonight. It's even with my earbuds. Usually it's louder and it's not. I apologize. Oh. Now notice how I know the mayor had said, "Oh, it's because he's taking notes," but he's not very good making eye contact with the public. he often looks down when the public is speaking to him.
But for the ones that did contact me and help me out and gave me some insight, the person that got shot, she's doing okay. She's in recovery. She's doing fine. But the people that did help me, I definitely appreciate y'all because I was definitely going through a mental state at that time.
So basically, she was saying there was a shooting. Her friend was shot. Her friend's doing okay, but the mayor's laid off some police, and she feels that some of the officers who were good were laid off, and she's not happy about that. And also that when she called Talani Smith, remember Talani Smith's niece, they're in with Jed and his group, and Talani Smith's niece Keisha Stokes is the one who attacked me, assaulted and battered me. So that's her alderman is Talani Smith. And she said I had called her several times and just basically was getting no response. And I mean, they make 40 some thousand a year, plus they get 25,000 a year in their expense account. Now, of course, you only get that money reimbursed to you in your expense fund if you do everything the mayor says. If you're, like I said, if you're like his slave, his yes men. So that's why I call them the four alder yes men. So, they get reimbursed, but like Colby and Tracy don't because they ask questions, which again, they should be asking questions, right? So anyway, so that was that. Let's see. Oh, then Diego. This is Diego now. Another Harvey resident. And I love it because he said, "Eyes up! I'd like to have everyone's attention because the mayor usually looks down at a lot of the aldermen. They look like they're playing on their phones during public comment." You tell him, buddy. Can you guys hear better now? I did check all the volumes and they're up. So, like I said, I don't know what's going on, why it's sounding a little quiet, but just let me know in the chat if you can hear or not. So to summarize, yes, Beth, thank you. You were a witness to that assault. Exactly. Yep. So as I walked down he's as I walked down the street. So he said he went to the St. John Lord of Mercy Fest this weekend and he had a good time. So he enjoyed that. That's the last Catholic church left in Harvey after the two others were closed by the Archdiocese. Very sad and unnecessary, but whatever. And then he said, "Hey, instead of all these police in the meeting, how about we keep, the blue collar ones, have them patrol and just have a few white collar ones in this meeting? Like, why are they all in here? Because it costs a lot of money to pay all those cops. I mean, I'm assuming if they work the day shift normally, wouldn't that be also overtime that we're paying them to work at a city council meeting? Like, it's not violent. Jed's not there. No other, troublemakers are there. I mean, we don't need 15 armed officers for a city council meeting. It's just ridiculous." And then he also said he made a comment about I think oh yeah, because he had noticed I think something was up with someone's business like downtown or whatever, but he was wondering, well, where are the police? Oh, look, they're at City Hall. That's right. Okay, and then at the end he said, "Oh, also let's get people to register to vote," and then he gave his number. So that was nice. Let me go back to the comments here. And your stream is complete. Okay, awesome. Hey, Beth. 7 officers and the chief of police. Right, probably more than that too, because a lot of them go in and out. My estimate is probably about 15 total, and sometimes there's usually security back in the mayor's office that you can't see because the windows are tinted because everything's secretive. They're all behind you. I'm pretty sure they don't see you as a threat now. Oh, you mean me, Javar? I don't know what you mean by that though. They were quiet. Yeah, turn up the volume. You did great. Thank you, Beth. Thank you. Clark made dismissive comments about us. Exactly. So the last part of the meeting is mayoral comment. That's what we're going to go over right now. Boarding at the properties. This man doesn't want Jed in meetings in Harvey. Keisha Stokes assaulted. Yep. Diego really gave some strong comments. Yeah, he did. He spoke out, which was good. I'm glad to hear that, especially from one of our Spanish speakers, you know. And then French says, hey again. Salut de nouveau. All right, let's go back to Clark, and he says some doozies. Oh, this lady too, if you're wondering, she's one of the very highly paid staff. You know that she gets paid with our money, just like this guy makes tons of freaking money, our tax money. And what does he do in the meetings? He does nothing. He just freaking sits there. Clark doesn't even allow him to say anything. Remember, Colby tried to ask him questions before, and Clark doesn't even allow the lawyer to talk. Anyway, it's just a waste. But this is Ramona Simpson, I believe. So she is, I think, chief of staff for Clark, but she's one of the. Okay, Mayor, get it together. Come on. Come on. He says talk about ice. Okay. You know, give me 1 second. Let me refresh this, you guys, because I. Why is it so popped up on my screen? And that's the first thing he does is go to attack. So he says basically, oh, Mexicans are being treated great here, and people are going to try to divide us, right? He's dividing us.
Merci, and those who have something to say about it. This once again show us what you do.
So he says, if you have something to say about ICE, show us what you're doing. That's literally your job. This is a city council meeting. This is not the city volunteer group meeting. So he never takes responsibility for everything. For anything. He drives me nuts.
Because just about every place that is declared itself to be a sanctuary city, where does ICE go? To those places. Okay? If you want to keep your family.
And I totally disagree with that because, I mean, to a certain extent, he's right. Yes, people that have spoken up or they become sanctuary cities maybe have been targets of the Trump administration. But the fact that people speak up, it works because remember, Trump did not do the big crackdowns that he had kept saying he was going to do because people organized and they fought back and they said, no, you can enforce the law. You can even arrest people, but you cannot kidnap people. You can't send them to concentration camps. You can't do things illegally and violating people's human rights and use, the National Guard and ICE to do so, and that's the issue, right? Because I don't have a problem with enforcing laws, even immigration laws, but that's not what this is about. It's about they're kidnapping even people that have American citizenship. They have no due process. And like I said, they're getting shipped to these conditions that are like concentration camps. How can anybody support that? That has nothing to do with right or left or whether you like Trump or not. And Clark is just saying, oh, well, just don't do anything. So, okay, so then why was ICE and Harvey? Maybe because Jed said he called ICE. That could be. But otherwise, it's like the community in Harvey, people are pretty quiet. They don't do much. That's part of the problem, right? But like bullies don't work that way, and Clark should know because he and Jed and Trump, they're similar personalities as bullies. They don't care if you're quiet. If you're quiet, that means to them that means you're weak, and they're going to come after you even more. So it's stupid.
Sometimes it's a good idea to just be quiet. Okay? Sometimes that's just a good idea. Maybe you might try, I know it's hard.
And again, extremely disrespectful, extremely rude. You might try, if you want to protect your family, he says you might just want to be quiet. So, okay, so the Holocaust is happening, let's say, they're going around Nazi Germany, they're kidnapping Jews, they're sending them away, they're kidnapping gays, gypsies, anybody that whatever, group of the day that they decided they wanted to politically prosecute. And some people are, again, just like in the US, right? Some people at that time in Germany were like, oh, well, but, I guess the Nazi party said they violated the law and they're going to arrest them, so we can't do anything. Other people are saying, hey, this is violating their human rights. You can't just do that. Like, why are you can't just take people, kidnap them, send them away to camps. And they stood up for them. But could you imagine, like, basically, according to Mayor Clark, oh, well, just don't say anything. It's victim shaming. It's victim blaming. Like, that's not good. That's like talking to Anne Frank's family, right? And saying, saying, you know, oh, well, you guys were obviously, Anne Frank got taken and she was eventually killed by the Nazis because obviously she was too loud. They were hiding. They were hiding out for their own survival. Like that kind of thinking is really effed up, to try to blame victims and shame victims that way. Like we should be speaking up for our rights, because again, it has nothing to do with how you feel about immigration law or whether someone, you know, is doing immigration correctly or not. It has to do with they're not, no, these people don't have any due process. They're kidnapping people. There are people that have died in ICE custody because the conditions are so bad and they don't have any contact with their family or a lawyer or anything. They may not be getting food. They're being treated like animals. Even if you've committed a crime, you still deserve to be treated with dignity, right? So Clark is just saying, oh, well, you shouldn't worry about that. You know, just be quiet. And if anything bad happens to you, it's just because you weren't quiet.
I want to see every single person to be protected from what's happening in this spelling discourse. You got to be the best way to do it is not to sit up here and start pumping up the chest. So what are you going to fight with? The folks see the videos happening right now. Who's going to stop? Because that ain't going to be hard.
And, you know, this is the very definition of a horrible, horrible, horrible leader. The least he could do is just speak out and say, I support respecting human rights. I respect, you know, enforcing the law when appropriate, but I don't enforce extrajudicial kidnappings and concentration camps. And I mean, any of those things he could say for free. And how is that? How like what's wrong with that? I mean, to me, it just shows that he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about what happens in Harvey, because remember, according to many sources, Christopher Clark lives in Chicago. He doesn't even live anywhere near Harvey. Why does he want people to not stand up for truth? Exactly. Yep. Well, the meetings are still free. The meetings are still. Oh, what do you mean, French? I don't understand that.
So why do you want to give that man more?
Who's gonna stop them? Actually, who's gonna stop them? Again, what an ass thing to say. You know, what a horribly unprofessional, like horrible leadership quality thing to say. Again, to victim shame. And to say, you know, well, why would you want to say anything or speak up because it doesn't do anything? That has literally saved people's lives in Chicago, as Trump has tried to send ICE and the National Guard in, not to keep the peace, but to antagonize and to go after his political enemies. So actually resistance works, especially when you have bullies like Clark, like Trump, like Jedediah Brown. Resistance is the only thing that has ever worked for people like that. Remember, only people that are reasonable respond to reason. Is Clark a reasonable leader in his behavior? Look at his past. No. He's had my alderwoman arrested 4 times. All she does is ask questions about where the money's going. 4 times. Now remember, if you're one of those people that's just like, well, I don't know, I guess since he had her arrested, she must have done something wrong. You have to learn how to question things. Be critical. Be a critical, independent thinker. And ask for evidence and ask questions and examine, right? Don't just accept what authorities tell you. Just because someone was arrested, that doesn't mean that they did anything wrong or criminal, right? So it's that kind of thinking that really gets us in trouble. You know, we have to really ask, like, what's really going on. So yeah, I would counter to Mayor Clark that, you know, not only is your response horrible and unfeeling towards especially our immigrant population in Harvey, but it's just wrong, because actually resistance does work. It's the only thing that works against bullies who are not reasonable. They don't respond to, oh, let's just stay quiet, you know, and he'll leave us alone. No, bullies like that doesn't work.
All we have to do, because right now, unless of course, somebody gonna get on Facebook, read all that, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, somebody may have comments because they want to get clicks, and they want to be known, and they want to be seen. And it's not about the community, it's about the community. Stop thinking about yourself and think about the community. You can get a talk about the community.
Again, shaming. I don't know if that's targeted towards me or targeted towards whatever, but shaming people for speaking up for human rights. So how are you any better than any dictator? And then calling us selfish because we want better in our community. Like, get the heck out of here, Clark.
What happens to Harvey? That crime starts to move. Crime doesn't disappear. Crime moves. And they're going to get it to the weakest link. The places that have the least amount of protection. So,
no, you know where they go? They go to communities like Harvey that are residents. We have some wonderful residents, but they have coward leaders like you, Mr. Clark, who don't stand up for people who are deathly afraid because they don't know if their spouse goes to work or, goes to run errands or whatever, let's say to go drop off the kids. Like we've seen so many stories of this, and ICE is lying in wait. And they, the one story lately, news story said that ICE took the husband, left the wife and the kids in the car, and the wife couldn't even do anything with the kids because ICE just, again, there's no due process, no courtesy, no anything. The husband had the keys. I mean, this is what people are afraid of. These are real fears. You don't shame people about this. You address them and you say, we're going to stand in solidarity with you. And we're going to tell Harvey police not to work to defend our citizens and defend our citizens' human rights, and not to work with federal agents that are violating people's human rights, right? How hard is it to do that? Yeah, Clark, it only took you, let's see, this is year 6 in office. And you said it's been fixed many times over the years. So is this really fixed, or is this just, for the next week? No, who wants to pay online? I'm not going to give the city of Harvey my financial information like that. I don't trust you. No one should trust you. You don't even show us where our money's going. And then he says, drop it off in the window. You work for us, Mr. Clark. You should have the AC and the heat working in City Hall. If not, why don't you sell that luxury SUV that we pay for, that you drive around in with the dark tinted windows that I hear are bulletproof too? Why don't you give up your driver that drives you around everywhere? Why don't you give up your personal security, or just pay for your own with your own money? So he's praising the fire department, saying they can put out fires. Why don't you sell all these vacant properties, board them up, put tarps on the roofs, do something about it? Why should you just let these buildings sit, and then squatters break in, and then fires break out when they live there, and people are dealing drugs out of them? And wouldn't that make more sense? Like, why are you praising the fire department for fighting fires that are started because you don't do your freaking job? So tonight, Mayor Clark decides to address the whole jet issue. I guess it did not miss much. No, but it's still good to see people come out. I like that because it reminds me this is our city. No apologies. It's not. It doesn't belong to these politicians. It belongs to the people. They work for us. So anyway, now he talks about jet a little bit. He says the people in Dalton who were bamboozled, they're the ones that invited Jed to Harvey. So you ignore me, who has brought investors, potential developers that wanted to save these horrible buildings. You ignore residents who come to you with issues and complaints. You ignore elderly people that want to keep their houses, but you force them to sell so you could put a hole in the ground. But you don't ignore Jedediah, and you think that we should kiss your butt for that? Really? He found out that there was nothing there. Again, it seems like you talked to this Jedediah bully person more than you talked to your own residents, Clark. Did you know that he doxed me and others? Do you know? Did you have nothing to say about the times that we've said that the on July 14th when there were four, actually potentially even more. I was looking at the video from the attacks that night, but people that violently, that were with Jed, that were protected by Harvey police, that violently attacked me, Amir, his daughter, Beth. You're okay with that? Oh, there's another thing. And then he brags that the last two houses, the people, yeah, that's because one was a huge 2-flat, potentially a 3-flat, and the other was a good sized house. And there was a good amount of land with that. And not only did the families they needed to pay off their mortgages, they needed to get equivalent houses in other communities, which all cost more than Harvey. Um, and they needed their moving expenses. And at the end of the day, no matter how much you paid them, you could have paid them $1 million. It wasn't about the money, Clark. It was about that you are a tyrant and you worked with the tyrants on the MWRD board to say, oh, we're going to put a flood pond, a retention pond where your houses are, so you have to sell. And these vulnerable older people who just wanted to enjoy their last few years on this earth, you had to push them for years. You did everything you could to fight, even though we fought for them to keep their homes. So don't lecture us about anything. You're a tyrant and a dictator. You're no better than Trump. Oh yeah, okay. And then he says we shouldn't sue the city because I'll never be sued because I never did anything wrong. People have tried, but they can't sue me. But you shouldn't sue the city because it's just the taxpayers paying anyway. And I said, why doesn't the city, including you, why don't you just stop doing illegal things and violating people's rights so then people won't sue? Doesn't that make sense? But again, he's a victim shamer. He's a victim shamer. Very abusive.
For certain things as far as their duties. I don't want to have a conversation about the scope of duties, because if we have that conversation, we'll find out that a lot of those things are outside the scope of the duties. We're not going to go down that road. It's the seed. You want the seed, come take it. You can make those decisions. But until then, you've got to respect the understanding, the same way I did. And because we have the financial and the should be done very soon. Am I correct? Very soon. And then we have a plan and strategy to come current on those the following two after that within what you say 18 weeks. So we'll have that done.
Really? Okay, so you're gonna get all caught up in the finances. This is your 6th year in office. You've been saying that for 6 years. Whatever. Show us the money, Clark.
2018, the previous mayor decided to get rid of half of those leases.
Oh yeah, and then he wants to talk about Kellogg firing employees. Like, who the frick cares what happened in 2018, Clark? You're mayor, and you've been mayor for 6 years, and you've had this board under your control for since 2023. So going on, this will be into the 3rd year next year. So again, what is your excuse? You don't have any. What are you hiding? Where's the money going? Obviously, you don't want to tell us. You're a liar. Oh, okay. He was talking about the police, I think. Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Well, I don't want to discriminate against person. I want to agree with what was said. We need more votes. I want to see vote. We need those numbers to go outside any.
Blah blah blah.
You know that this is a well-deserved award.
Oh, is he? Yeah, and then he goes to talk about the gospel concert that Colby said. I think we're supposed to pay 30,000 of our tax dollars for. But remember, he can't afford to fix potholes and other basic things like that. Can't afford to board up homes, but he can afford to do a $30,000 gospel concert. And then he's going to honor an elderly man, which is great, but not because he cares, because Clark doesn't even live in Harvey, but just because he wants to try to curry favor with the older people, the voters, get them to vote. Oh, the food giveaway he was talking about from yesterday, and supposedly he says that Jedediah helped with that. I don't know what happened. I don't know what the truth was with that.
They were very welcoming, and we were able to give out at least 200 meals to those who are in need. This was also sponsored by Islamic Relief USA, and this is another one of those. Even though I did not invite this young man here, this is another one of those situations where Jedediah Brown helped to make the connection between that organization and the city so that we can provide those people food. He doesn't necessarily always agree with everything that I'm saying or doing, but the one thing that he's doing, at least so far, rough as he can be sometimes, is he's staying focused on trying to make sure that this community gets what it needs. And we appreciate that. We appreciate, of course, Islamic Relief USA, which was brought up during the comments. We were able to have additional police officers there. And we had additional police officers there, those who have some issues or if they want to have threats, citizens advisory board might be able to do it. Our other alderwoman, Shirley Lewis.
That's it. So it's interesting because he was like, oh, the police, yeah, we have police there at the St. John Lord of Mercy Fest this weekend, blah, blah, blah. Of course, because that's one of his butt kisser alder yes men, Shirley Derwinski. That's her ward. If you do everything Chris says and bend the knee, then, depending on how he feels that day, he probably will allow you to use the police or whatever. So that's just not right. Like, that's how he bribes and controls these aldermen. It's not right. Mom of the Pompey built. Great question. They should have started already according to their plan. I mean, I still don't want it. That's 2 blocks from my house. And the whole thing is just a horrible, horrible idea. And it never should have happened. But no, nothing's happening so far. Does Harvey have a bond for when people sue Harvey and for how much? Great question. I do not know. We cannot hear anything he is saying. Oh, really? Oh, you couldn't hear Clark? Oh, wow. Well, that was basically it. He really didn't say that much. So any questions, guys, or I'm going to get going? Thanks for joining me for the recap. Hopefully, I took an hour. I didn't mean to take that long. I'm trying to make the recap shorter. I'm sorry. I'll work on that. So, okay, everybody. Bonne nuit, bonne nuit. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Au revoir.